The winter air bit through the bustling city like invisible knives, slicing through coats and pride alike. It was one of those evenings when people hurried home with their collars up, the streets lined with faint Christmas lights that flickered like forgotten hopes. Outside a luxurious bakery where the scent of sugar and butter danced in the cold, a small figure stood trembling. Her clothes were ragged, her face pale, and her fingers were purple from the chill. She pressed her hands together, not for warmth, but for courage. Her voice trembled as she asked the bakery owner, "Do you have any expired cake?" The words barely left her lips before they were swallowed by the noise of the city. People walked past, their boots splashing through puddles of half-melted snow, their eyes trained on anything but her. To them, she was invisible, a ghost that haunted the sidewalks. Inside the bakery, the owner frowned, shaking his head dismissively, muttering something about rules and hygiene. The girl's shoulders sank. She turned away slowly, her eyes glistening with tears she refused to let fall. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, but hunger was easier to bear than the sting of rejection. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps spread stories that remind the world that compassion still matters. As the girl shuffled down the dimly lit street, a sleek black car stopped near the curb. The door opened, and a man stepped out, tall, sharply dressed, his presence commanding. His name was Ethan Ward, a billionaire known across the city for his ruthless business decisions and unshakable discipline. He built his empire from the ground up after losing everything in his youth. But over the years, success had frozen something inside him. His eyes were the color of steel, cold, calculating, and distant. He had only stopped because he noticed a commotion. A small girl being told off for loitering. Normally, he wouldn't have cared, but something about the trembling voice that asked for expired cake struck a chord buried deep within him. It reminded him of his own childhood, of the days when he and his mother slept in shelters, praying for food that never came. For a moment he stood there, staring as she walked away, her tiny frame swallowed by the night. Without thinking, Ethan followed. He found her sitting by a closed bookstore, clutching a torn plastic bag, her knees drawn to her chest. Her lips were cracked, her hair matted from the wind. She was maybe 13, perhaps younger, though hunger made her look smaller than she was. She didn't notice him approach. She just sat there, whispering something to herself. Maybe a prayer, maybe a memory. Ethan's heart tightened. He remembered his mother's voice, weak and tired, whispering the same way years ago. For the first time in years, he knelt down beside someone who had nothing to give him. He held out a small paper bag, the cake he had just bought from the bakery minutes earlier. "Here," he said softly, "it's not expired." The girl looked up in shock. Her eyes were a storm, pain, gratitude, disbelief all swirling together. She hesitated, afraid it was a trick. When he nodded, she took the bag slowly, as if touching something sacred. The first bite made her tears spill freely. She ate silently, her hands trembling, crumbs falling on the cold pavement. Ethan said nothing. He just stood there, watching a child rediscover what warmth tasted like. As minutes passed, the city around them blurred into insignificance. It was just a man and a child, connected by hunger and humanity. When she finally finished, she whispered, "Thank you. I didn't think anyone would see me today." Those words broke something inside him, the invisible armor he had built over years of success. He asked her name. She said Lila. She didn't know her last name. Her mother had died 2 years ago, and she hadn't seen her father since she was 5. She slept wherever she could. Under bridges, behind stores, sometimes in the park if the weather allowed. She used to go to school, she said, until school stopped being free enough. Her innocence made his throat tighten. That night, Ethan did something no one expected from a man like him. He took her to a small diner, ordered hot soup and bread, and sat with her like an old friend. She told him about the stars she counted at night, about how she believed each one represented a person who hadn't given up yet. "When I can't sleep," she said, "I pretend my mom is one of those stars, watching me eat, telling me to be brave." Ethan looked away, fighting the burn behind his eyes. He offered to take her somewhere warm for the night. She refused at first, fearing he was just another stranger who'd disappear in the morning. But his quiet patience, the kind that only comes from knowing pain, eventually earned her trust. They drove to one of his foundation shelters, a place he rarely visited. He introduced her to the staff, told them she was to be taken care of, no questions asked. When she finally lay down on the clean bed, she clutched the blanket as if it might vanish any second. Ethan stood at the doorway, watching her fall asleep, a child who had fought too long to survive in a world that forgot her. That night he couldn't sleep. He stared out his penthouse window, looking down at the city lights. Each one reminded him of the people he had stepped over on his way up. He realized that all his wealth, his achievements, his empire, none of it filled the emptiness he had carried since childhood. Lila had done that in one evening, just by asking for expired cake. The next morning, he returned to the shelter. Lila was awake, sitting quietly with a small sketchbook one of the volunteers had given her. She was drawing a cake with stars above it, her way of remembering kindness. Ethan smiled, something genuine and rare. He sat beside her and asked if she'd like to go back to school. She looked at him, unsure if he meant it. When she saw his sincerity, she nodded, tears shining in her eyes. Over the next few months, Ethan's life changed in ways he never expected. He became a part of Lila's routine. Breakfast before school, homework after. She brought laughter into his sterile mansion, chaos into his ordered world. She made him remember the warmth of humanity, the beauty of giving without expecting anything in return. For the first time in years, he didn't check his phone during dinner. He listened. He cared. Lila blossomed. With every passing day, her cheeks filled out, her eyes sparkled brighter. She began volunteering at the same shelter she once slept in, helping children who shared her story. She told them, "Don't ever be afraid to ask for expired cake, because sometimes that's how angels find you." Ethan expanded his charity foundation, not as a publicity stunt, but as a mission. He funded programs for homeless children, education scholarships, and food drives. But more importantly, he visited often, not as a billionaire, but as Uncle Ethan, the man who once shared cake on a cold night. Yet deep down, he knew it wasn't just about helping her. She had saved him too. Before meeting Lila, he was a man chasing profit, haunted by loneliness. After her, he understood the true meaning of wealth, the ability to restore hope in someone else's eyes. One rainy evening, about a year later, Ethan stood with Lila outside that same bakery. She looked through the window, smiling at the rows of fresh cakes. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think happiness came in crumbs. Now I know it comes from sharing the whole cake." He laughed quietly, his chest tightening with pride. She handed him a small drawing she'd made. It showed a little girl offering a piece of cake to a man in a suit, both smiling under the stars. "It's us," she said simply, "because that day you saw me when nobody else did." Ethan's eyes glistened. He framed the drawing in his office, a reminder that the greatest success stories begin with small acts of kindness. From that day on, every bakery he owned under his foundation gave free food to the homeless at closing time. And every year, on that same cold night, he and Lila returned to the bakery to hand out cakes to anyone hungry enough to ask. The world saw Ethan as a billionaire philanthropist, but to Lila, he was something far greater, the man who taught her that not all wealth shines in gold. And to Ethan, she was living proof that compassion can resurrect even the most guarded heart. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to help us continue spreading stories of hope and humanity. Your one act of support might inspire someone else to change a life. And before you go, comment below, kindness never expires. Let's fill the comments with hope. One word, one story, one heart at a time.